You're watching Plants and Politics with Gina Bonanno-Lemos. If you're ready to hear the truth about both sides of the aisle, what's really going on in America, and how big money interests prevent change to keep you sick, broke, and desperate, then play on. Everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. This is Gina. I'm excited. We have a great guest today. So I am going to bring you Carissa Kranz, who is an award-winning attorney and former prosecutor who founded her own law firm and is licensed to practice in 3 states. Carissa is a TV host and personality who has appeared on Nancy Grace, Dr. Drew, Fox, CBS, CNN, NBC, you name it. Many major media outlets, and she's a legal expert who works with the Jane Mitchell team on Jane Unchained News Network, hosting her own show called Laws That Matter, as well as overseeing aspects of Jane's new Amazon Prime TV show, New Day, New Chef. So welcome, Carissa. So happy to have you here and to meet you finally. So
Thank you. I'm great. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me here.
Of course. I appreciate you coming on. So you have a very interesting story in many ways. You, as I understand it, used to be a ballerina.
Yes.
Correct? And
yes.
So what was it? What was the impetus between you going from ballerina, something that's artistic, to attorney, which is so cerebral? I mean, what a
well, once a ballerina, always a ballerina. So I still say that my soul identifies with ballet. But it's an interesting point you bring up, because I've lived in 2 worlds. My ballet friends were the artistic ones, and my law friends at law school were rarely, although I did go to Berkeley Law, so I was around artistic lawyers, because that community does foster a more artistic, spiritually inspired education. But most of the time you're talking about 2 totally separate worlds. I still very much exist in both worlds, though. Ballet to me is my outlet rather than a profession. It's more a form of spirituality and exercise. Law for me is something that I was put on the path on in high school. When I had a knee injury. I was at the School of Performing Arts, and I was a dance major. And when I got a knee injury, I didn't want to have to leave the dance department because all my friends were at my high school. So I auditioned for another department, and it was communications, which was speech and debate and creative writing. And I stayed at the same school, and I learned this whole other skill set. And then I danced after school every day. So I was grooming both skill sets at the same time, and was literally trained to exist in both worlds. And then when the decision came for law school, I struggled because I wanted to continue to dance to my potential, but my mom was a professional ballet dancer and did Broadway, and her and my dad got divorced when I was very young, and I saw how hard it was to survive as a ballet, on income wise. Ballet teachers don't make much money, and professional ballet dancers don't make much money, and I'm a very independent person, and I want to be able to survive on my own and not depend on anyone ever. So I made a business decision, but I kept dancing all throughout law school, and up until about 5 years ago, I was dancing with my point shoes. So I'd love to get back to that point, but it's so hard running all these businesses and working all the time.
Yeah, you've got a lot going on. And we'll dive into that in a second, so you can give everybody, all the different facets of, oh my gosh, I don't know how you...
I know. Welcome to Carissa's Chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. Your own show on that. That would be one more thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it struck me as so unique, because people typically work out of one side of the brain or the other, and really, those are two separate sides of the brain that you
totally
function with here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's hard is I'm a perfectionist. So I had to be perfect at both sides. I had to be, in my head, I had to be the most perfect ballerina, and I had to work so hard. And then when it comes to law, but you know what? They're not so different if you ask me for real, because it's all about attention to detail, right? In order to be a very good ballet dancer, you have to be able to problem solve why it's not working. Why aren't your turns working? Why aren't you balancing? What mechanics in your body's not working the way you want it to work? So in a way, in order to become a very good ballet dancer, you have to be very smart. You have to know how to make your body work and how to think how, okay, if I pull out of my hip here, maybe I'll balance longer there. And ballet is all about how equal and opposite energy helps put you on balance. So if you're pulling like out of your arm one way and your toe the other way in an arabesque, you're going to stay on balance longer because you're going to understand how every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Yeah, that's the physics. So it is problem solving. It is attention to detail. But in theory, most of my ballet friends did not become lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Now, the other thing that makes you super unique is that you are a lifelong vegan, right? I mean, most people become, I was 41 before I became vegan.
So you don't look 41.
I'll be 50 next month.
Oh my gosh. You look amazing.
Oh, thank you. That's the vegan diet.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, most of my life I ate meat, and most of the people I know who are plant-based are the same. They were, omnivorous for the majority of their life and just more recently became vegan. Or maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But yeah, so from the time you were born, you were 100% vegan. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, except for my mother's milk, but yes.
Wow. So Tell me how your parents came to raise you as a vegan, how that came about.
So my mom turned vegan before she was pregnant with me, or for the pregnancy, but she was my mom was raised vegetarian. And my mom's side of the family, I'm a fourth generation veg on her side. Wow. Not vegan because she's the one that started the vegan thing, but vegetarian. And it started with my great grandfather. He had a health issue, and he wanted he just believed he was ahead of his time. He believed that the meat and the dairy and the white bread and all that stuff was bad for you, and he cured his gastrointestinal disease that he had with a plant-based diet. And it just stuck with the family. So a lot of my mom's family is either vegetarian or vegan on her side. My dad was not vegan at all. And when they got married, my mom basically was the one to choose the nutrition of me when I was born. And she was the cook in the house. So she had the control there basically on what I was going to consume and how it was going to be made. Now, my parents did get divorced when I was about 5 years old. And it was a battle on how the nutrition was going to be determined for me. They got divorced in a time where veganism was not normal. It was considered unhealthy. The food pyramid was meat and dairy. It's changed since then. The food pyramid has changed. Since then, the USDA has been sued by PCRM to change the food pyramid. But back when I was being raised vegan, the food pyramid was another way. So my dad had legitimate concerns about me getting my protein, getting my calcium, getting my nutrition. He thought I had to go to a nutritionist. He was very concerned, and it was a fight. It was part of the custody battle fights, how I was going to be raised. So how did I end up actually being a vegan? Was one, I was introduced to it first very young by my mom. And when my parents got divorced, I had to make a choice. And my mom said to me, you're going to go to your dad half the week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every other weekend. I cannot control what you do there. You do what you want, but this is what it is. And I immediately did not want to eat an animal. So my family legacy and background was a vegan diet and vegetarian diet because of the health aspect.
Mhm.
But for me, it was a moral and ethical decision for the animals. And then since then, I would say my mom is now a vegan because of the ethical side of things, whereas she started it for the health aspects. She cut dairy out because she was feeling like she didn't feel well. She felt like dairy was worse for her than meat would be.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Wow. So you're still living, you're still alive, clearly healthy.
Yeah. It's all of that is just meat marketing, dairy marketing. I wouldn't eat it even if it meant I wasn't healthy. I just wouldn't do it because I can't eat an animal. But at the same time, I've never broken a bone in my body. I danced ballet professionally. Yes, I had a knee injury, but that was from overexertion, and I twisted the knee doing forte turns, and I had to take time off. I've never broken a bone in my body. So, and I've never drank a glass of milk. So, and I don't take calcium supplements. So I just think that all of that is marketing.
Yeah. And you're clearly functioning at a very high cognitive level. So
Yeah.
it's not negatively impacting your brain to be vegan since you were born. So
Right.
I think that's phenomenal. I think it's excellent that you stuck with it, given that pull between the two parents and that foresight.
But now it's nice because like when my dad comes to visit me, which he's been spending a lot of time with me during COVID, we go out to eat, and he looks at a menu and he's like, okay, what can I order? And he lets me order for him now. So now he's eating completely vegan with me. But that's a huge shift from 30 something years ago where it was like, you're embarrassing me. How can you order? You can't order this way. You're not going to function in society. And I was the little 6-year-old marching to the kitchen to talk to the chef to make sure that they wasn't going to have all these ingredients in my dishes. And I was writing Skittles. I remember I wrote Skittles a letter because they had gelatin in their candy, and I was upset. And all my friends were having Skittles, and now Skittles is a gelatin-free candy. Doesn't mean it's vegan because of the dyes. Who knows? But I was just that kid. I was that kid that went to Subway and when it was my turn to order my sandwich, I'd hold up the whole line and I'd be like, can you change your gloves because you just touched all that meat?
Oh, wow. Yeah, you were hardcore.
Yeah. But it was the energy of the meat. They were touching all this meat and cheese and slapping it. And you saw the grease of the animal flesh on the gloves. And then they're going to go grab my bread. I'd be like, okay, sorry, I don't mean to be a pain, but can you change your gloves? And then can you grab me another piece of bread because you touched that bread with those gloves? Yeah. They would look at me. They'd roll their eyes. But you know what? Things have changed. Yeah. Things have changed. I went to Chipotle 2 nights ago. And I was in line and I got the veggie bowl and my black beans had chicken in it. And I said, but they didn't put it in my bowl, but the black beans had chicken, has cross-contamination. Yeah. So I said to them, I go, is that chicken in there? And they looked and then they scooped it out and they're like, yeah. And I was like, do you mind if I have another bowl? I understand the chicken's not in my bowl, but it's just, the chicken was in the black beans and that's it being cooked together. The juices are together. I just need a new bowl. They were completely understanding. It's not like it was 30 years ago. It was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yes, we're going to get a brand new black beans. They threw away that whole bowl. They threw away the entire black bean tub that was contaminated. They didn't just take the chicken out and expect everyone behind me to accept that, even if they're not vegan and wouldn't care. They replaced the entire black beans. Wow. So I think that that's a sign of positive times and change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the fact that there's so much science coming out and has been coming out for, a couple decades now, showing the health ramifications of animal consumption. So I think they're starting to make that connection. You know, it's kind of like the whole issue surrounding food allergies. So they're starting to make that connection that, oh, okay, this is actually affecting people's health and whether or not they develop a life-threatening disease, so we better take it seriously. I think that's helping. So whereas before it would be, oh, you're just some crazy, you know, animal loving, tree hugging.
I know.
You know?
Yes. I know.
So as we were saying, you have a ton going on. So one thing that I wanted to touch on and hear more about is this incredible program that you started called Be Veg. Certification program. So for anybody watching or listening on the podcast that doesn't know about it, can you tell everybody exactly what it is, how it came to be, and all the great stuff you're doing with it?
Yes, of course. So Be Veg Vegan Certification is a certification program just like there is for organic and gluten-free and food safety, but for vegan. Whether you're surprised or not, the truth is that vegan is not a defined standard. The word is not defined. So on your products, I learned that you can have a vegan claim and nobody's holding that claim accountable. It means nothing. It can be misrepresented. And because the law doesn't recognize it, they can get away with it for the marketing benefit because people want plant-based vegan foods. So all things being equal, if someone wants a vegan, if there's 2 protein bars there and they're the exact same and one says vegan and one doesn't, 80% of the time the consumer is going to buy the one that says vegan, whether they're vegan or not. So there's a huge marketing benefit for companies to market vegan, but a lot of times this happens to the detriment of the consumer. And whether you're vegan or not, you want consumer transparency. We live in an age of political transparency, relationship transparency, label transparency, and there really must be a truth in labeling laws. So as I learned this and as I was practicing law, and I have a serious legal background, I was a prosecutor, I'm licensed practice law in New York, Florida, and Washington, D.C. I worked at Greenberg Traurig, which is a big law firm. I've had my own civil practice for 8 years. So as I was learning this information, I was like, this is crazy. Like, there needs to be laws around this. There needs to be laws protecting vegans and veganism and the choice to have honest vegan labeling. So that's how Be Veg was born. So Be Veg is a vegan certification company that is managed by my law firm. And we certify products with a global trademark around the world. The Be Veg vegan logo is on every continent except Antarctica. And we just gained, it's being announced today, actually, our ISO international accreditation, which is ISO 17065, which is for products, certification of products. So we are the first vegan standard to have international accreditation by ISO standards, which means it's not just a global vegan trademark like other vegan trademarks out there. It is a global vegan trademark that is internationally recognized for a vegan scheme under international standards. So it brings truth and transparency and credibility and integrity to vegan claims that never existed, and it's about time that it exists. And I hope that companies will take it seriously, because not only do manufacturers need to take it seriously for consumer transparency, but those that have vegan products, sometimes they'll say, well, I don't need to certify vegan. Everyone knows I'm vegan. And the truth is no, everyone doesn't know you're vegan. And no, you haven't had your ingredients vetted and your suppliers vetted. And no, you haven't been audited. And so long as you're not taking vegan claims seriously and credibly to get certified, neither are the factories. So if you want veganism to be defined and to be taken, which we defined it now, we defined it at Be Veg, which has been accredited. But if you want vegan to be taken seriously and you stand for veganism as a vegan product, then you should get certified to let the world know you mean it. And then manufacturing facilities, who are paying a fortune, by the way, to get accredited kosher and organic and food safety and all these other certifications, everyone wants the vegan certification for free because they don't take it seriously. So as a vegan, you should be offended by that. You should be offended by that. And you should want the certification and demand it, because that keeps the supply chain accountable. You might think you're a vegan product, and you might intend to be a vegan product, but you don't know what all the 20 ingredients that you're using are coming from.
Yeah.
Unless you have the supplier spec sheets, and unless you went to the manufacturing facility and you saw the way it was put together to determine that the cleaning mechanisms in place ensured no cross-contamination. It's like me going to Subway asking them to change their gloves.
Right, right. Yeah, and there's so many hidden animal products in foods and prescription meds and supplements, you know.
Yep.
And there's so many people, because I teach people how to go vegan. I have a couple training programs that I've created. And as part of the program, I give them a whole list of ingredients that, you know, it doesn't say from an animal source. So people have no idea. I mean, these are just names that nobody recognizes, nobody understands where they're coming from. And there's so many out there that people are just blown away to hear, oh my gosh, this was in my beverage, this was in my supplement, you know. And
what do you see is most surprising to people?
I think how much dairy is in things, how many different names dairy can go by, you know. And yeah, or like you were saying, just the, you know, the colorants, the different colors that they use in food, candies that come from, you know, that are shellac from an animal, from a bug.
I know.
So, yeah, it just, or even in beverages, you know, beers and wine
is in glass. Yeah, fish splatter, gelatin, egg whites, crustacean shells.
Yeah.
Bones of fish, sugar. They call sugar natural charcoal, which means bone char.
Right. Yeah. So it really would be helpful, because there are so many times that people will bring me things knowing that I'm vegan, or they'll bring something to a party and they're like, oh, you know, I got this, and you know, there's no meat or dairy in it. And I look at the ingredients, I'm like, no, this isn't vegan.
Yeah, and another problem with ingredients now is that the law protects trade secrets to the detriment of consumer transparency as well. So right now, you might read the ingredients and you won't even realize that there are ingredients missing that aren't disclosed. And the law basically says that if it's an insignificant ingredient, quote, insignificant, it doesn't have to be disclosed. So what is insignificant? Insignificant is anything that's less than 0.5 grams per serving. So if there's something that's 0.4 grams per serving, you're allowed to round down and say it is sugar-free, gluten-free, alcohol-free, vegan. Well, that's really misleading. If you're trying to avoid sugar, per serving adds up to an entire package. And so there you are with ingredients not only being misleading and misunderstood, but just missing. Ingredients can be completely missing. And
flavoring, you know, natural flavoring.
Yes, natural.
Yeah.
Natural flavoring, natural coloring, all that stuff can be of animal origin. Yeah.
It's very misleading.
And then there's the incidental ingredients that also don't have to be disclosed. So there's the insignificant, which government bodies round down, and then there's the incidental, which are the ingredients that could end up in the final product through the manufacturing process at the facility by cross-contamination or through some other ingredient that might have fallen in. And they say that incidental ingredients are also insignificant and therefore don't need to be disclosed. So the benefit of a vegan certification is you're keeping the process clean. It's food safety, basically. I mean, this is food safety law 101. You do not want cross-contamination. And forget about the fact that if you care if it's vegan, if a manufacturing facility does not have proper mechanisms in place that could contaminate a product with a non-vegan element, maybe you don't care because you're not vegan, but you should care because that means their cleaning mechanisms aren't in place proper, and that's a food safety issue.
Yeah. And like I said, for people who have allergies, I mean, if they're not making sure that their equipment is completely sanitary and clean in between processing different types of products, you could have a massive, anaphylactic shock attack from cross-contamination from peanuts or something. So yeah, it really is important.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So Tell me about your show on Jane Unchained News Network.
Yeah, so it's every week. It's on Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time and 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's called The Laws That Matter. And every week we feature a BVeg vegan certified product. We bring them on. They talk about their journey, how they got there, their vegan certification, where your product can be found. And then we also have a featured guest of a show or a panel of guests where we will either talk about laws that matter with the name of the show. That might be anything from laws surrounding veganism with COVID and wet markets and slaughterhouse worker rights. What was the woman that was run over by the truck, the pig vigil?
Yeah, I don't recall her name, but I know who you're referring to.
I know. Well, anyway, so that we talked about Renee. Was it Renee?
I honestly can't remember.
Okay, well, we talked about that and the legal ramifications of that and whether or not it was intentional or unintentional. And there's a new law in effect a bill that passed but wasn't in effect yet, which basically made it illegal to protest and be in the way of a truck going into a slaughterhouse for more than 2 minutes. So in a way, it made her a criminal for basic First Amendment rights, even though she was in Canada and not in the United States. There's so many laws that criminalize those that are trying to end the violent criminality of the food system. Anyway, so sometimes we talk about
everyone, for anybody watching who doesn't know, isn't aware, maybe they're not involved in the vegan movement. There was a woman who attended what's known as a pig vigil. And so they go to these meat packing places and they basically just show the animals one moment of kindness before they're taken in to be slaughtered for food. And this woman was sadly run over by one of the trucks and killed. And so that's what Carissa is referring to.
Yeah. And it was sad. And what they determined is that there was no criminality, so the truck driver basically got a slap on the wrist for reckless driving, and that's it. Her life was taken and she was brutally dragged, and the truck didn't even stop until the workers and security people came out screaming at the truck driver, and then they cleaned up the scene and hosed it down, and her life was taken. Someone that gave her life to lives, I don't know, it's so sad. Our world's kind of messed up. But anyway,
if you can drive a truck full of living beings that are as smart or even smarter than dogs, as smart as 3-year-old children, if you can drive them to their slaughter where you know that they're going to go through a horrific, terrifying experience in the last moments of their life. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't imagine that person would value human life. Yeah,
it's so true. And I think that's the reality and the problem with so many of us. And that's why the food system continues the way it does, because we aren't really valuing life. And I know one thing is the rescue that she worked with and for and was very involved in had asked that the truck full of pigs that were in the truck be rescued in her honor and in her name. And those pigs were sent to slaughter before the rescue even got there to rescue the truck. Isn't that horrible? At least it would have been nice if they could have rescued the truck of pigs.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole situation's horrible. Everybody died except for the truck driver.
Yeah. And what really flipped me, because I was like your mother, I initially started looking into veganism for my health. I was horribly sick all the time throughout my entire life, and no doctor could ever help me, alternative doctor, traditional doctor. Within 3 months of going vegan, I turned every health issue I had completely around. It was like I was a completely new body. It was unbelievable, which is why I switched careers and why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I was in real estate for almost 20 years. So, but it was a pig. It was a picture of a pig that that did it to me. Initially, it was, I started looking into it for health reasons, but it was this one image in particular. And what caught my attention and really was gut wrenching was because I had been protesting the dog meat trade. I was out protesting in front of the Chinese consulate or the Korean consulate, I forget which one, and marching up and down with signs and standing outside of my local grocery store handing out flyers. And I was going door to door in my neighborhoods with flyers with my daughter. And there was a picture of a dog that had been boiled alive. I kept it on my desktop, as sick as that sounds, to remind me, to keep me going in this fight. And the picture of the pig that I saw was almost identical to that dog. And it just snapped. So I was one of those people that was making excuses for why I couldn't do it. And that just did it for me. So yeah, when I hear pigs, it breaks me, because I know they're no different than dogs. They're literally no different. They just look different. And in my mind, until we learn to drop the speciesism and stop treating different animals in different ways, we're not going to treat other human beings all the same. It's one and the same issue.
And that's kind of where I try to get at with the show on Jane's Network, The Laws That Matter, because it really does come down to equality and justice for all beings. And these are the laws that matter. The ability to recognize whether it's, I did several segments on Black Lives Matter, because vegans should stand for, as a movement, not just animal rights, but all rights. We should stand up for social justice and against injustice. And to me, there's a difference between the animal rights movement and the vegan rights movement. Animal rights are for animals, and that is a noble movement, and we must be there. And most vegans will be part of the animal rights movement. But that doesn't mean that that's their movement. It means that they are standing up against injustice, because we should understand that these higher laws that matter, these universal laws, the intended laws of mankind and the cosmos for our planet, is that of equality and justice and compassion and kindness for all of us. And if we cannot extend our circle of compassion to each other, I don't know how we're going to extend it to animals. And if we were wise enough and evolved enough to extend it to animals, most likely and hopefully you're automatically extending it to each other as well. So it is a movement of enlightenment, if you ask me, what veganism is.
Yeah. One would hope that would be the case, but that was the impetus for me starting this podcast and this YouTube channel, was because after George Floyd's death, I saw a lot of vegans, a lot of my fellow vegans online, really excusing his death and trying to push his criminal past and making really racist comments, really white supremacist comments. And I found it so vile, so reprehensible. And I just felt like I had to do something. And so I thought, I talk. I like to talk. And I like to interview people and get the word out and try to push ideas that I think we should all embrace. And so, that's how this whole thing was born. That's how Plants and Politics came to be. But
I think veganism will be a much more successful movement if we're able to stand up against racism as well. I mean, I think really that's what veganism needs to be. It needs to be a movement for peace. That's why I think Will Tuttle's book is wonderful, The World Peace Diet. It really is about peace. Don't, end racism, end speciesism, end injustice, end inequality. Stop looking at our differences. Realize we're all the same. Realize that we come from the same place. Realize it's all energy. Realize that our energy goes back into the same cosmos of the animals that we are murdering for food on our plate. We are not better. We are not different. We're just a speck in this universe, and planet Earth is just a speck in this universe that we live in, and God knows if there's multiverses. I don't know. We are so insignificant, and we act like we're so significant and superior to all other things and beings, and because of that, we are ruining our own planet, our own lives, and our own consciousness.
Yeah, very well said. So true.
Mm-hmm.
Until we see every living creature as valuable and important and equal, nothing's going to change.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, we're literally destroying ourselves. So one thing that struck me, I was looking at your website, and it said that you are, a lot of the work that you do, or maybe all of the work you do, is pro bono. Is that true?
Not all of it. No, I have a whole staff of people in my law firm that does a lot. We have injury clients. But I would say that the vegan certification business is very much cost oriented only, and we're not making legal fees off of that. It's so hard. I mean, we're in the business of consumer transparency and trying to make laws about things that matter, and veganism matters. And our goal is hopefully to be making money in volume with that, but it's definitely not making legal fees like we're used to making legal fees at all. And then I've done a lot of pro bono work. I did for the wet markets in New York. I drafted a legal petition for rulemaking to try to shut them down. We did get a response from the governor, but it wasn't, like usual, anything that did anything. And I have taken care of my ballet teacher for the last 8 years with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I took her out of a nursing home and moved her to my house, and that's how I started my own law firm 8 years ago. And everything I've done for her and Alzheimer's has been pro bono in nature. So not everything I do, I have to survive. I have payroll, I have people to pay, but I am certainly not driven by money. I believe that the money will come when you do the right thing karmically. So yeah, if I were focused on just the money thing, I'd be making a fortune doing personal injury law and doing just that. And that would be my end all be all. But we still do that. I believe in compassion for all beings. That's our slogan on our website. So whether that's an injured human being or an animal or vegan certification, it's all really connected. And to me, human law is an intended version of these higher universal laws that we should be having in place. So that as a lawyer, you can work within our current framework of law and be an enforcer of the law, or you can say, you know what, I get the law, I understand the law, but there's always room for interpretation, and the laws are always growing and expanding. It's like an organism, and laws are always being drafted. And if you're passionate about something like I am with veganism, there's room for laws to be made, and laws will be made around veganism, way beyond labeling law. I have a book that's coming out called Vegan Law, Know Your Rights. It's being published by Vegan Publishers. Mm-hmm. And there's chapters in there about veganism as a constitutional class, discrimination in the workplace if you're vegan, who determines the nutrition of a child upon divorce, vegan patient rights, the right to vegan food at places of public accommodation. So like right now we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, where places of public accommodations have to make reasonable accommodations for those that are disabled. Well, it should be no different for vegans. At a restaurant, at a bar, at a hospital, at a prison, at a school, we should have access to healthy nutritional, delicious options. So veganism really is an area of law that is very different than animal law that needs to be explored, drafted, defined, and as it is and done, the animals will benefit because they're the beneficiary of our choices.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's awesome. I commend you. The world needs more lawyers like you.
I need another meet, like just to help. I need a helping hand.
Yeah.
I need another. I mean, I have help, but I always feel like it's never enough.
Yeah. Well, especially with everything you've got going on. So it's not like you're just running the law firm.
No, the law firm is running B-Veg and the books, the shows. Hey, keeps me going.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you definitely live a life of purpose. So that's
Thank you. That part I would say is true. I really feel like there's just not enough time on this planet to do everything I want to do. I feel that sense of urgency every day, and it drives me. And I can't stand wasting or feeling like I'm wasting my time or being unproductive, because I feel like I have such limited time here to do what I want to do. And there's just so much to do.
Yep. I totally get it. We are so in sync.
Yeah. Here's my little new rescue here.
Oh, so cute. Oh.
This is Pumpkin. She came to me during COVID. She's my little pandemic partner.
Oh, is she full Shih Tzu?
Is she what?
Is she a full Shih Tzu or?
I think she's a mix between a Shih Tzu and a Maltese. I think she's 4.5 years old. So I got her from the Shih Tzu rescue though in Florida. So she had to have, I don't know, she was surrendered. She had a health issue, but now she's all better. And yeah, but hey, thank God the rescue not surrendered her. The rescue made her better.
Yeah.
Let me have her. Yeah.
She's so cute. Yeah, we had a little teacup Maltese. We lost her last year, so about a year ago. Yeah, very heartbreaking.
How much did a teacup Maltese weigh?
Just 5 pounds. So she was so tiny. She was like 2 pounds when we got her.
Wow. Yeah, Pumpkin weighs between 5 and 7 pounds, depending on if I guess what she's eating. I think right now she's like 6 pounds. Here's Pumpkin.
Adorable. Yeah, we got to get another little one. We have two big ones, and then we have one of our girls that just moved back in with us because of COVID, and she brought her dog. So we've got 3 big dogs in the house and a cat.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
A cat too?
Yeah. Which that was one thing I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be able to have animals at all, because I had such horrific allergies before I went vegan. But also cats, their dander is airborne for like 12 to 24 hours. And it's also sticky. So it sticks to like walls and furniture and your hair and clothing. I couldn't even hug someone who had a cat before I went vegan. And now this cat sleeps on the bed next to me. I mean, it lays all over me. It's, unbelievable what a vegan diet can do. Yeah.
Everyone needs to try it and get their own experience, right? The evidence is what you see yourself.
Right. So tell me one thing that people would be shocked to hear about you. I mean, you got so much out there in the public sphere. So tell me one personal or quirky thing about you, or something
personal. I can say I have no time for a personal life. I froze my eggs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I just have had no time. And when I felt the clock ticking at 35, I said, you know what? I'm going to do it right before I turn 35. So I froze my eggs right before I turned 35.
Wow. Okay. That's news.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But I think that's something people don't talk about a lot. And I think it's hard to be a female and a boss and an entrepreneur and a self-starter and independent and financially successful and have the option to be a wife and a mom and have all those other things that people want to have in life. And I am doing so much that it would be impossible for me at this moment in time, but I also didn't want to miss my window. So I preserved my window by it's like an insurance policy, do it for later. Yeah. So I would recommend it. The person that got me to do it and talked me into it was Nancy Grace. Oh, wow. A very, high profile female news anchor who was a go-getter and is a go-getter, career-driven, career-oriented, who ended up having her kids in her 40s and had a very tough time, because of the late pregnancy. And
so she did not freeze her eggs. She tried to do it naturally.
Right. And, there's just a lot of risks when you wait, right? When you wait and you have it later, there's not only a risk to the eggs and the fertility, there's a risk in carrying, there's a risk in the health of the child, the health of the mother. So I took her advice seriously. She's like a mentor to me in a lot of ways. She gave me my start in the media arena as being a legal expert. When I took in my ballet teacher with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, the local newspaper did an article, and she read the article and basically was just touched by the story and said, I want her to be on my show as one of our lawyers. So it's on the Nancy Grace show. If you watch the show, every segment, she had unleashed the lawyers and a panel of experts. So I went to CNN headquarters in Atlanta. I did the Nancy Grace show. My first show was the Charleston church shooting, which was the massacre. And so I prepared the whole show, and the show was nothing that I prepared because of the shooting. So it went into breaking news. And I held my own. And then I became a regular on her show for the next 2-3 years before the show went off the air. And so she, to me, in a lot of ways, is someone I feel very much indebted to with my career and my life. And she's got a wonderful off-the-air personality, and she's got her on-air persona where you feel like she's going to jump out at you through the screen. But she's a wonderful human being, and she's a lovely person to have lunch with. And she gave me the wonderful advice to freeze my eggs.
Yeah.
And I listened.
I love people who tell it like it is. And so
that's Nancy.
I've always liked her. Yeah.
Yeah. That is Nancy.
I don't like the phony baloney, put on an air and act like, no. I like, even if somebody's kind of gruff or, a little abrasive, it's just, that's them. That's, they're being real. They're keeping it real. So I can respect that.
And that's why she's so great at what she does, because she's not a cookie cutter personality. She doesn't blend in with every other voice on air and image. You turn on the TV and everybody's gorgeous and sounds the same. Nancy's Nancy. She's her own brand, her own persona, her own person. And you either loved her or you loved to hate her, but you watched her.
Yeah.
And you had ratings. She had the ratings because people wanted to hear. People either wanted to hate on her or they wanted to love her and hear her. But either way, they watched her.
Yeah, I can relate to that. People either like me or they hate me. There's no in between. It's no like, I'm not vanilla. I tell people I'm not vanilla. I'm more rocky road. So you either
yes,
you like the bumps and lumps or you don't.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's really cool. That's a really neat story.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm glad to hear that she is who she is, that she's authentic, even as who she is in public life, as she is, in private. So.
Yeah, but I would say off the air, she's got a lot more grace with her last name.
Yeah.
Yes, on the air, there's so many times on the air she would like go after me, and then we go on commercial break and she'd be like, sorry, Carissa, I just had to do that. Like, I'd be like, okay, Nancy, because she wanted the debate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And there's a difference when you're talking about important issues and topics that you can get heated over versus just having a conversation with somebody over lunch,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that can get heated too.
Yeah.
It does in my house.
But see, the difference is lunch with Nancy, she'll sit down, she'll be like, tell me all about Carissa. What's going on in your life, whatever. But on TV, she'd be like, she'd talk over you, she'd cut your mic, she'd do anything, like totally different Nancy. But it's fun, that's fun. That's part of the show. That's part of what made it interesting, the ability to cut the mic. Mm-hmm. And to talk over you and to go to the next thing and to, It was
and it's her show. So
the pace. I miss her show. I wish it would go back on the air.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that is so neat. So before I let you go, because I know you probably have a ton of stuff to do today again.
Yeah.
So,
It's okay. Yes. We're gaining our global accreditation today, so we're going to be announcing it formally. So, but yeah, so.
how neat. So are you announcing it on Jane's show, or are you announcing it in a press conference? How are you guys?
I'm going to hire someone to help me do PR better. We need to do a press release. I have to write that. Yes, I did mention it on Jane's show, but I will do a whole show on it. I think probably maybe next week or two. And our social media will announce it. I don't think it has yet. But I could be wrong. I haven't checked my social media today. But yes, it will be, we're going to have to do a formal press release and announcement. But I'm sure if you looked on the internet already, you might be able to just find it through Google. But yeah, we're going to do a formal, yeah.
Very, very cool. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a big deal because it's not an easy thing to get accredited.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, there are other vegan logos out there that have been around a lot longer than Be Veg has been around, and they might be more recognizable even because they've been around so much longer. But you know, our logo is recognizable now. It's in Whole Foods, it's in grocery stores across the world, and it's certainly maintained a presence on the internet. And now it's not only a global trademark, it's accredited. So that's just a really big deal because international accreditation bodies and the International Accreditation Forum, which recognizes BRC and USDA and gluten-free and all the other accredited standards, have not until now had a vegan standard that they recognized. So it's kind of exciting.
We're taking over the world.
We need to.
It's happening.
Yes.
People. The writing's on the wall.
I know. Which side of history do you want to be on?
Yeah. And it's funny because when I first started this journey in my transition to a vegan diet, my husband kind of laughed at me when I said, and this was like 10 years ago almost, I said, this is the way the world is going to move. This is going to get huge. This is going to take over. And he kind of chuckled at me and like, you know, dismissed me as like just having these crazy ideas. So now he sees it. I mean, you can't go to a restaurant without there being a vegan option. And, you know, look at all the fast food places now jumping in on it because they see this. You know?
Is he vegan now?
He's vegan when he's home.
Yeah, that's a common thing.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to be having a more serious talk about him going vegan because he just had some blood work done and everything came out pretty normal. And for his age, I mean, he just turned 54. So, you know, for his age, he's in good shape and, you know, relatively pretty healthy, especially compared to his friends, you know, his contemporaries. But his cholesterol was a little high. Shocked to see that. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, chicken has the same amount of cholesterol as beef because he, you know, makes a big deal about how he doesn't eat beef. He doesn't eat much pork, if ever, you know, maybe pepperoni on a pizza, which just kills me. But he mostly will opt for chicken or turkey or fish. And so we just literally had this conversation this morning. I'm like, well,
it's not uncommon though for that to happen like around the 50 when you turn 50 or so, because my high school debate coach, who I was very good friends with, I knew her when she was 29 and now she's like 50. And I was always that odd vegan in high school, the only one that had to have the special vegan dinner for debate tournaments. And I had dinner with her right before COVID, the end of February. And we sat down at a restaurant and she goes, what are we going to order? I go, well, what do you mean? She goes, oh, I didn't tell you I'm vegan now. I'm like, what? Like, when did that happen? She's like, oh, well, when I turned 50, my husband and I, we just felt like we, you know, our bodies were changing. We weren't feeling well. I'm like, last time I was at your house like a year ago, you guys were making pork chops. Like, what happened? She's like, no more. It's totally vegan. Almond milk, cashew milk, all plant-based. And I was blown away at this, like blown away that, and And she said that not only that she's still a high school teacher at my high school, and she says 1/3 of her debate team is vegan now.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, times are changing.
Yeah, that is really awesome.
Yeah, I was like the only one before. I graduated high school in 2002. So,
wow.
Yeah, it took maybe 18 years, but
you're so young.
Not really. I don't feel it anymore. I mean, I don't know.
Well, but when you graduate in the 80s,
yeah, well,
seems a lot younger.
Yeah, well, time goes fast too, though, as I'm seeing. I mean, when I have dinner with her now, and she's 50 or whatever she is now, I'm like, I knew you when you were younger than I am now.
Yeah. Wow.
So it goes fast.
It does go by fast. I know.
Yeah.
Wow. So before I let you go, anything else that you'd like to share with everybody? Anything new coming up, other than the stuff you've already talked about, your book and everything? Anything that you'd like everyone to know or take away from,
I would say, the takeaway is I'm behind the Be Veg vegan certification. Just follow it, see the accreditation. If you're vegan and you have a vegan product, get it certified. Let the world know that you care about vegan marketing that's honest and that you want to keep supply chains accountable. And by doing so, and by asking your manufacturer to comply, then they take vegan certification seriously as a manufacturing plant, whereas right now they don't. They just take kosher and gluten-free and other certifications serious. So if the consumer demands it and then product owners demand it, the world's going to treat the standard the way it should be treated, which is with honor and respect. The book should come out hopefully by the end of this year. Vegan Law, Know Your Rights. Weekly Jane Unchained show. Every week is different. Laws That Matter. Wednesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And just trying to change the world. No small feat.
Yeah. One day at a time,
Yeah.
Step at a time. But there's definitely a growing movement. So
yeah,
awesome. And we're lucky to have you on this team.
Oh, yeah. No, well, thank you. And thank you for doing your show and getting it off the ground during a time where politics is very much in need of peace. So plants, politics, and peace would be a nice, theme to have. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, there are, two things that I'm just obsessed with right now. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to talk about them both. I'm just going to talk about plants and politics. And, and there's a lot of crossover. So as you well know with your work.
Yeah.
So on social media, are you under your name?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm under my name, but Be Veg is under at BEVVEG. So there's 2 V's on our social media handles, and it's the same for all social media: Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I think I'm missing one. Instagram, yeah. And then I have my personal, and then we also have Laws That Matter now as well. So there's 3 Insta handles if you really want to follow me. There's the Carissa Kranz one, there's the Be Veg one, which is Bev Veg, and then there's the Laws That Matter.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for taking this time out. I really
thank you.
I know how swamped you are, so it means a lot that you took.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So be connecting with you. I urge everybody watching and listening to connect with you on social media and follow what you're doing and get involved. Get involved and help. And as Carissa mentioned, reach out to the grocery stores, let them know what you want. We vote with our dollars.
Yes.
And change the world by where we allocate our money. So I encourage everybody to do that and make a difference. So thank you so much, Carissa. And I hope we'll be able to meet in person someday soon.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Gina.
You're welcome. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for watching Plants and Politics. The only way to take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks again.